Welcome to In Her Voice, a podcast created for women who listen to and live by their deepest wisdom, their inner voice. This was made for you, the woman who feels pulled to more, to lead, to create, to dream, and to be a world changer. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am an inner voice coach. Join me here each week as we explore what it means to reach for your inspired potential, all while honoring your worthiness each and every day. Hello, friends. This is Kelly, and you are listening to In Her Voice. Thank you for being here today. I have a really great interview, and it's so funny because I don't know if you know this about my podcast, but I do all of my interviews in chunks. So I will do, say, a block of interviewing in February, and then I won't do any interviews for a few months. And then I will do a block of interviewing in July. And so this interview is all the way back from May 2019 was when I interviewed Sarah Weiss. And we are talking about self-care for empaths. And I love this interview because for a really long time, I did not understand what an empath was. I thought it was somebody, who was a mind reader. And in a way, it kind of is, but not in the way that I thought, and maybe not in the way that you thought. So I think that there are more of us that are empaths than we know. And when you start to recognize what it means for yourself, then you understand how you have to take care of yourself, maybe in a different way than you have been up to this point. So this is just going to be a really fun, informative interview. Let me tell you a little bit about Sarah. Sarah Weiss is the founder of the Spirit Heal Institute and the Enlightened Empath Training Program. She initiates and helps cultivate self-empowerment, an awakened heart, and trustworthy intuition in her clients and students. She is a practical mystic and recognized teacher in the Sufi path, the Andean Karo tradition, and the Taoist lineage. Sarah serves as a healer, spiritual mentor, medical intuitive, and retreat guide, illuminating the path for those who are called to discover the light, depth, and power of the heart. Additionally, Sarah is an adjunct professor at Baldwin-Wallace University, teaching meditation and mindfulness to music, theater, and business students. And I mean, just from that, I'm sure you can see that I totally fell in love with Sarah. And she was so kind to come and share her wisdom with us. So let's get right to the interview with Sarah Weiss. Sarah Weiss, welcome to In Her Voice. It's so nice to have you here.
Thank you, Kelly.
So I'm really looking forward to our conversation today because you teach people about what it means to be an empath and about how, if you are an empath, to take care of yourself. And so I thought that we would start with the most obvious question, and that is, what is an empath? And I will preface this by saying, I used to not really understand what that word meant. I thought that an empath was like a psychic or something like that. And I realize now that it's so much more complex and deep than that. So why don't we start there?
That's a great place to start. And it's really interesting because 5 years ago, this was not a topic on the scene. It's really come to the foreground recently. And so I think it's a young science, a young understanding. In other words, we're in the early stages of beginning to understand what an empath is. So in the past, you're right, empaths may have been associated with intuitive, psychics, highly sensitive people, and would not have had their own definition. And I think it's really important that there is a word for what an empath is, for who an empath is. So if I was going to define an empath and who an empath is, it's someone who is actually reading the energy through the oneness, through the unified field. In other words, they feel connected to everyone. There's nothing that's invisible to them within the given spectrum of their particular range. And they're connected to the oneness and they're picking up this energy that they don't know how to read. So what happens is they begin to interpret what they're experiencing personally. So if someone has a sore knee and they pick up a sore knee, they feel like they have a sore knee, which is different than a psychic might look at it, or even a highly sensitive person. They would realize that was something outside of themselves. But an empath doesn't know how to distinguish from the whole unity field, from the oneness, what is theirs and what is someone else's.
Mm-hmm. And is that something that they can learn?
Yes, they can learn. I'm proof of that, having been an empath since birth. And most empaths are born as empaths. Dr. Judith Orloff, in her book, The Empath Survival Guide, which is a great primer for people who are looking to understand empaths, um, speaks about the nervous system of an empath, that it's actually a particular brain nervous system profile. And they're just starting to research this. So we're usually born this way. And then,
Interesting.
right, and then in order to learn how to manage all that overwhelm that seems to come in, because it's as if you don't have a filter and the whole world is part of your being. I believe that you have to learn about energy. You have to learn about the depth of your being and who you are. So I believe that being an empath calls you to a deep spiritual exploration uh,
Mm.
of the subtle world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that there's stages of that and that there's skill building, so that I don't think that you're going to be able to put like a magic sphere of light around you and protect yourself forever. I believe that there is a skill building process where you learn about consciousness, where you learn discernment, and you learn to grow past, let's say, the wounds and dismissals that you've had most of your life, because that comes with being an empath. And you learn to find out who you are in order to know who someone else is. And so it's to me, a learning process and a skill building process.
Mm-hmm. This is so interesting to me. And I am going to ask a question of clarity
Hmm.
because on the podcast, I had Heather Dominic a few months ago talking about highly sensitive people, particularly highly sensitive entrepreneurs.
I
But
saw that. Hmm.
yeah, and it was a great interview. So if you guys are interested in that, you can go back. That was back in January.
Hmm.
But can you, is there a distinction between someone who's a highly sensitive person and someone who is an empath? Can they be both or is it separate?
I think they can be both. I think it's a continuum in some
Uh-huh.
sense. And the way I would distinguish a highly sensitive person from an empath is this: a highly sensitive person is sensitive to their surroundings, to people, to things that are external, and they realize they're external. So if there's a buzz in the fluorescent light, or the fabric of their clothing isn't right, or someone is agitated around them, they will feel uncomfortable. An empath would take that inside, and the buzzing of that fluorescent light becomes their own discomfort. They can't distinguish between the buzzing light and their own feelings, so they begin to personalize
Mm,
what is outside of them. And so, like I said, if there's someone with a sore knee and an empath is around them, they'll believe that they have a sore knee if they feel that knee. Okay.
gotcha. Mm-hmm.
versus a highly sensitive person would be able to distinguish what's outside of them from what's inside of them.
Mm. Hmm. That's very interesting. So let's talk about what you mean when you say energy, the energy field. An empath has to begin to understand how they're receiving these feelings, if you will,
Hmm.
through the energy.
Well, I come from a very a mystical perspective. I have, I'm a mystic. I've studied this and been on the mystical path all my life. And I've also been very sensitive to energy and aware of energy since birth. And when I believe that empaths are connected to the oneness and unified field of all that exists, that they come in with this sense of oneness that people who are on the spiritual path are seeking to attain. So they're coming in from a place of oneness. So they feel connected to everyone and everything. Other people on the spiritual path are coming in from, let's say, a strong ego point of view, and they're trying to dissolve that ego to learn to feel what oneness is like. So they're coming from different directions. Now, if we're connected through the unified field to everyone that exists, the only way that we know that this unified field exists is through energy. In other words, on the third dimensional plane, the earth plane, you look like an individual and I look like an individual. But if we go into the subtle energy plane, we can experience the oneness that exists among all beings. So, in order to understand how this communication is going back and forth between people in your lives and what's happening inside you as an empath, I believe the only way you can like prove it to yourself is by being able to see what's going on with the energy or feel, experience what's going on with the energy, because that's the plane that it's happening on. It's not happening on the physical plane. We're
Mm-hmm.
separate and individual there. But once you tune into the subtle energy, you can actually see emotions going back and forth, vibrations going back and forth, and sharing among people. And it becomes very evident where the source of something is. So if I can see that someone's knee is in pain or they're suffering from an emotional trauma, then I can separate that out from my own. So it's a subtle energy awareness that helps an empath uh, stay in the unified field because we really do want to attain that. We do want to have a background of that oneness for spiritual expansion. But we also want to be able to figure out who I am versus who another person is.
Mm-hmm.
Once we can begin managing our energy, we can start separating it out within the context of oneness.
So,
It's
what does that even look like, though? So, when
okay.
you say like seeing the energy and managing our energy, can you maybe give us an example of that?
Sure. A really simple one. Okay. So when when you're talking to another person, can you feel how your attention goes out to them?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. That's energy. Wherever your attention is, your energy follows. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So your energy is on me, we're talking, and my energy's on you. And the simplest way to work with energy at the beginning is to see where your awareness is. Okay. So, Kelly, if I ask you to pull your awareness back to yourself right now, and I pull my awareness back to myself, and everyone who's listening to the podcast brings their attention back to themselves and can feel themselves sitting on their chair, driving their car, walking in their neighborhood, bring your attention back to yourself and feel what it feels like to come back to your embodied self. Now, how does that feel, Kelly?
It feels very grounded and
Mm,
very present to me. Like
mm-hmm.
I'm here. I'm not thinking about anything else.
Right. So that's the very beginning skill to start tuning into the subtle energy. Now, when I see that, so I could see your energy coming towards me, I could see my energy coming towards you, and that's on the subtle plane. But if you can't see it, you follow where your awareness is and
Mm,
assume there's a stream of this pretty energy going from you to me and me to you. Now, when we come back to ourselves, which for an empath is very, very difficult, they're kind of stuck on the outstream, okay?
mm-hmm.
It's hard to come back for a lot of empaths. It feels, unless they're used to being grounded in their body and sensing themselves in a positive way, they don't want to come back. There's been a lot of wounding, a lot of dismissing, a lot of what's it called, gaslighting today, where people make you
Mm-hmm.
feel crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times empaths don't want to come back to themselves because what they're left with is kind of this big pile of wounding. And learning how to manage that, heal from that with the help of energy and sometimes with the help of therapy, it becomes a pleasant sensation to come back and you can disconnect. Then those energy cords disconnect from the other person and you reclaim yourself, you fill up with yourself, and you don't have to be filled or connected with that other person's experience.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good explanation. Thank you for taking us through that exercise. And so it makes me wonder, as we did that exercise and we in a sense practiced
Hmm.
finding the energy and feeling the energy, can you learn to be an empath? I mean, you said that people are born with it, but can people learn it?
I would say you might not want to learn to be an empath, but you would want to learn how to be a very skilled energetic practitioner and manager of energies.
Gotcha.
Um, that way, you don't have to experience what another person is experiencing to know and understand what is happening with them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you're able to separate out the
Hmm.
two. I see what you're saying.
Okay. And then the other part of it is, can you learn to expand into a state of oneness? Because that's where the empath naturally lives, according to my belief and
Mm-hmm.
perception. And yes, people who want to attain that spiritual state, yes, they can learn that. But that doesn't mean that you have to feel everyone else's experience to know
Gotcha.
that.
Gotcha. This is so fascinating to me, Sarah, because I feel that um, people are walking around having these experiences, like the experiences of other people, and they don't even realize. They don't even realize it. And I was poking around on your website, like I like to do before I get on an interview with someone new. And I read this cool blog that you wrote where you developed what you called your empathic response profile. And it was sort of like once you started to realize you were experiencing other people's experiences and feelings in your own way, in your own body, you kind of made a list of what that was like. Can you talk about that? Because I found that to be fascinating.
Yes, it's so interesting because I would say, if I was going to describe myself, I would say I'm the most, um, let's see, spaced out person who's also grounded. So I'll be glad to meet you out in those outer spaces, but I am grounded. And so several years ago, this was like over 30 years ago, my husband worked at an ad agency, and one morning I felt like I wanted to go in the kitchen, get a snack, and I called him, to check in. And the receptionist said he just stepped out to get a snack at the candy machines. And I said, "Oh, okay." So I had my snack, he had his snack, talked later. The next day, I felt like going into the kitchen, getting a snack, and calling him. And the receptionist said, "I can't believe this. He just stepped out to the candy machines." 3 days in a row, I did this until it dawned on me he was the one wanting the snack, and it wasn't me.
Yeah.
Okay. So from then on, I started tracking what I was feeling with as many, it was like a research study. Sometimes you can't ask people what they're feeling or what they're doing, it's too invasive. But I took it on as a research project, and whenever I could get feedback about how I was feeling and how someone else was feeling or acting, I wanted to know that. And so, with the people in my close vicinity, I could start tracking certain feelings that I had inside and with the way they were thinking and feeling. So, a good example of that, if you want a positive, this is why people go to gyms and work out, or you have a partner to work out with. You both feed off of each other's energy and you positively help each other. But if it's invisible and you don't know what's happening, then you need to take on this little research project. So, for instance, now my grown older daughter, when she gets irritated or upset, then I feel angry. I feel angry with her. When my younger daughter feels upset, I get sleepy. Okay. It's
Interesting.
it's not like a one-to-one correlation all the time. And that's what makes it very interesting because it filters through something that's unique in you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So my husband can have a headache and my foot hurts.
Yeah, that's so crazy. Well, and let me just, for clarity, say,
Hmm.
or ask, I should say, so if your foot is hurting, what if it's just your foot hurting?
Well, my foot wasn't hurting before he came in the room.
Okay.
So literally, this is where the scientific method really works.
Science is so cool, isn't
It is. It
it?
really is. And so, so yeah. So I notice. I'm very aware of how I'm feeling and what my ground feeling is. Now, this
Mm,
is what's really important. Okay. So one of the things that you wanted me to talk about was what is my daily clearing and cleansing practice?
yes.
And that's really important for empaths. It's as important as going to the bathroom every day.
Mm,
So I actually work with a deep grounding practice every single day. And I tell people that if you do this for like 4 or 5 weeks, you finally come back and become familiar with what your baseline is.
mm-hmm.
So finding your baseline is really important. And I do that um, through grounding my energy with Mother Earth. It's really important to me to be connected to the earth. I could go on for hours about my love for Mother Earth. But when my energy connects through my feet and my tailbone to Mother Earth, and then I receive back the vitality and brilliance and loving energy from her, I get cleansed
Mm-hmm.
and I come back to my neutral. And I teach people to actually be able to do this in a second. So that during the day you can come back to neutral several times.
What a gift that must be.
And yes, and it's important. So if I am not sure about what I'm feeling or sensing, I return to neutral very quickly by grounding with my feet through the centers on the soles of my feet and through the tailbone. And basically, what that's doing is awakening the Kundalini in a
Mm,
gentle, beautiful, feminine way. And then every morning and every evening, I'll do a deeper period of time where I literally chelate my energy with the earth energy, which then expands into connecting to the heavens. And it's very much like the Qigong big heaven or microcosmic orbit practice, but it's a way of clearing and cleaning your energy so that you come back to neutral.
mm, hmm. I love this because I think that regardless if you are an empath or not, but especially if you are, this daily practice, this daily self care that is about returning to you is so important for everyone.
It really is. And the part that people miss is that it takes practice. It doesn't
Yes.
take a lot of practice, but it takes consistent practice. And so I do have on my site some great free grounding, guided grounding audios that would take you through this process. You can download them for free, keep them on your phone, listen to them for 4 weeks every day or as often as you can. There's an 11-minute one and a 30-minute one. So if you don't have time for the 30-minute one, you can listen to the 11-minute one. But after you practice it for about 4 weeks, there's a switch that turns on that your energy is trained to
Mm,
come back to yourself and reset.
mm-hmm.
And so people give up too easily, um, and they don't realize that working with subtle energy, working with meditation, it's a skill building process.
100%.
Okay. And it takes practice. But
And I tell my listeners know, Sarah, that practice is one of my favorite words,
mhm,
because, and I say all the time, it's better to practice a tiny bit every single day than it is to practice a lot one day a week.
I agree.
So just these tiny increments, this 1 second, 3 minutes, 11 minutes, just that little bit every single day will make a much bigger and much faster difference in your life than doing it once a week or once every 2 weeks or something like that.
I think that's wonderful advice. You know, the the beginning of that practice, which we can do right now, is is so simple, and it can be something that you do during the day without, anyone noticing. And that's that practice is to lower your center of gravity, bring your awareness down to your seat, not thinking about it, but you drop down so that you have a felt sense of your seat.
Mm-hmm.
Can you feel that?
Yeah. Immediately when you said that, I felt like the weight
Right,
come down and gather.
exactly. Now, one of the things that women have a problem with this practice is when you come down to your seat, all of a sudden the thoughts come in, well, it's too big. I start with the self-critical thoughts, and it feels like it's spreading. But but what you want to do is have this weighted, lowered center of gravity, and then you go down through your legs and you re-inhabit the lower part of your body. Say hi to your calves, let them soften, and then you come down to the soles of the feet. And just like you know where the center of your palm is, you know where the center of each foot is. And you become aware of that. And all of a sudden, your consciousness is flowing through your whole body. So when you get used to that, I always use the code seat and feet, seat and feet. And you can do that, anytime during the day when you're talking to someone. No one has to know you're thinking seat and feet, but you come back to yourself in a simple way.
That's beautiful. What a beautiful and simple practice. I was doing it as you were saying it, and it just like it has like this hugely calming effect. Like
Hmm.
bringing it down, like grounding in, centering. I love that. Seat and feet. I'm going to use that one. Seat and feet. So Sarah, as we near the end of our time together, I feel like we could keep going forever. I think that it's really important to talk about how we take care of ourselves. Like this is one of those ways, but like are there other important ways that empaths need to protect their own energy?
Yes, there are. There's several, and I hate to say it, but it really takes a lot of self-care to take care of an empath.
Huh, yeah.
You kind of have to accept that you need more downtime, that some situations in life are just not going to be good for you, and you learn to find out which those are. But it's important to find out what your dietary sensitivities are, your food sensitivities, and what types of nourishment your particular body needs. And don't assume that whatever the popular diet is the right diet for you or the right food plan. So I have an example of that going on right now for me. I had been drinking this vegan protein shake for the last 3 years every day. And about every 7 or 8 years, I do a food sensitivity test. And right now, and it might be because I've eaten this every day, I am now allergic to all the seeds and nuts.
Crazy.
So I can't have hemp, chia, all the seeds that go into these vegan
Right.
drinks.
Yeah.
So, so I don't know if I developed it because I drank it every day or I had that sensitivity before and I've enhanced it. So that was, who wouldn't think that this great drink made out of all this wonderful organic seed and nuts wouldn't be great for me? But it
Right.
turned out it wasn't. And I could feel my energy was taking a hit from it, and I didn't know why. The other thing that I think is important is really good, deep, not deep in terms of muscular, but quiet energy work that
Mm.
aligns your being. So, cranial sacral or polarity or muscle release work. I think it's important that the cranial bones get adjusted and the facial bones and the neck and the spine, and that the alignment, the structural alignment that goes out because of the stress of being impacted by so much energy in terms of emotions, thought, and physical experiences, that our bodies lose their alignment. And when that happens and the fascia gets taken out of place and the structures out of place, your consciousness will be struggling. And so I think it's important. Acupuncture, I think, is one of the most incredible modalities on the planet.
Mm.
So I get acupuncture every other week, and I have a few other practitioners that I go to when I need certain things aligned and help with that. I think that's really important. I think the downtime, I think being in nature is important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having a creative expression in your life is important. Whether it's writing, athletics, reading, knitting, art, music. I think creative expression is equivalent to energy flow.
Mm. I believe that too.
Um, my background, I have a degree in art, and I actually teach meditation and mindfulness at a local university to the music and theater students. and the
I
business
saw that
students.
on your on your website, and I find that fascinating. As a musician, I'm a professional
Oh,
musician,
oh, okay.
and so I know how how
Ah,
deeply my music students that I teach would benefit from those kinds of practices. I love that you're doing that.
yeah, so they've learned how to perform being grounded in their seat and feet.
Yes, I'm going to share that with my students. I think that that will be really beneficial. So, Sarah, before we wrap up, I like to end with one of my favorite questions, and that is, in your life these days, what is your inner voice saying to you?
It's and I really contemplated this question because you didn't want to surprise me and let me know about it. And so I've been contemplating it since last night. And my inner voice is guiding me to actually, for us to sell our house and move over the next year. And I was resisting that. It looked like too much trouble. And I don't know
Mm-hmm.
where we're going to go. But that came through strongly as I was asking myself that question.
Mm.
So thank you for prompting me to even think and contemplate about that and let it in.
You're welcome. That's so exciting, and I think I love that you shared that, because I say to my listeners and to my clients all the time that when something comes up from your inner voice, you don't have to know the plan. I think that becomes the scary part, right? Is it just told me this crazy thing and I don't know, and it seems so complicated and I don't know the plan. What, how is it, how, and all of the things. And sometimes we just have to trust it. All the time we just have to trust it and know that if it's there, it will all work out. And by acknowledging it, you're opening yourself up to now being aware of the possibilities of how to begin to plan that. And it's such a beautiful process.
That was very well spoken. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, thank you for sharing. Sarah, how can my listeners connect with you online and find all of your good stuff?
Well, the best place is through my website, which is spirithealonline.com and Spirit Heal, Heal, online.com. And there are a ton of free audios, a ton of blogs to read. It's a very information intense website. And I have a newsletter. If you sign up for the newsletter, there's a lot of good information that comes out there. There's a free download of a limiting belief mini book for empaths and a grounding mini book for empaths that's free on the website. And I think it's on your site too with this podcast, right?
Yes, we will put links to all of
Hmm.
these things on the show notes. And that means also there will be live links right in whatever podcast app that you're listening to. So you can click right through, get all of this great information. I know I also saw on your website you had links to like quizzes to find out if you're an empath and different kinds of things. And like you said, there's a lot of great information over there.
Yes, I teach a 1 year program called the Enlightened Empath Program, and it starts in January every year. And then I teach mini Enlightened Empath Basics courses throughout the year. So I'll have another one starting in July. And then I do individual sessions with people. I'm a medical intuitive, and which gave me, to refer back to what we were talking about, I was able to do a lot of scientific exploration of feeling my clients and how I felt inside, which really helped me discern who I am and who they are,
Mm.
referring back to that idea of exploring how you feel around other people. Um, so, but I've been working with empaths a lot because I am what I consider one of the ultimate empaths. I just am empathic with everything, and it's been through a lot of self-work that I have figured out how to work with it in a way that suits me. You know, there's so many ways to work with the empathic profile, and you have to find the one that works for you. And you can start out with one, grow into another, and the information's really starting to become available on the planet now.
Well, this is so cool. I just want to honor and appreciate you for coming here, for sharing your wisdom, for being patient with all of my questions, because I found this conversation to be fascinating, and I'm sure that my listeners did too. So thank you so much, Sarah.
Thank you, Kelly. Many blessings to you and the work you do serving others. It's really wonderful.
I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I did. And I just want to remind you that you are valuable, that you are special, that you are unique. And we need you being you. You know, when you try to be like somebody else, that works for a time, but eventually you get to the place where you just understand this isn't me. And when you show up as you, when you embrace who you are, that is when you are most powerful. You are worthy.